So we all know Dillian Whyte was advertised for last night's card. Fabio Wardley, Justice Hoon. We all know Dillian Whyte was advertised for that. It did get a little bit. You did start to ask questions when it got to fight week, and he was the only guy on the card who was still to be confirmed, as in an opponent. And then it came as no surprise to me when they announced they were pulling Dillian Whyte with a bigger fight lined up in August. So immediately you start thinking, could it be Chisora? Because obviously, me and Ade, we did an AMG man on Thursday, and that question was obviously asked, and we talked about it. And me and Ade came to the conclusion that there was only really three possibilities. One of them was Lawrence Cody, which I thought was probably the most likely. Chisora, which again, very likely, but I thought maybe with a Cody with the history there. And then finally, Joseph Parker, which I thought was probably the least likely, right? And we kind of were like, it might be Lawrence Cody, but that's not really a big fight, so maybe it's Chisora. Well, Mike Coppinger from Ring Magazine is announcing that, nothing official, but a deal is being actually finalised, apparently, we got to take it with a grain of salt, for August 16th, Moses Itauma versus Dillian Whyte in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Dillian Whyte gets his dream. One last big payday in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. He can retire with the bag. Moses Itauma, who is advertised, and he was called out by one of the fighters on the undercard last night, and that was a guy someone told me in one of my more recent lives, not to watch on the one I did last week in London, that was who Moses Itauma they were looking to match him with. Itauma is still advertised, correct me if I'm wrong, for Usyk Dubois 2. So you're talking roughly less than a month, 27 or so days. You could do it, but you'd want to get pretty much a cream puff, to be honest with you, to go in with a town, because you just don't know. You just don't know. Jermaine Franklin, you're looking at a distance fight, and would he be ready to go in a month? I doubt it. Maybe, who knows? But Dillian Whyte, Itauma, that's an interesting one. Not really interesting. Well, it is. It is and it isn't. It's not interested in a sense of I think it'll be necessarily competitive. I don't. But Dillian Whyte, at this stage in his career, 37 years old, multiple failed PED tests in his time, served like a ban in 2012 to 2014, had the issues in 2019, talked about inactivity from 2023 to 2024. Obviously, wonder why he was inactive. We all know why. We do all know why, it's not secret. But trying to salvage what's left of the career, was meant to fight Joe Joyce in April, pulled out of that with a cut. Was meant to be on this card, pulled out of that, and is now apparently going to be fighting Moses Itauma. Dillian Whyte has looked You see, for me, actually, I would look at this fight for Itauma and say, on paper, it's a step up, but it really isn't, is it? The Mike Bilogans, the Dempsey McKeans of the world. Much of a muchness. Really, is it? Because you think of it like this, right? Dillian Whyte looked absolutely horrendous against Ebenezer Tete back in December. Horrendous. Ebenezer Tete is alleged to be 36, 37 years old. And I say the word alleged because there's no way in hell he's 36, 30. Man looks like he's in his 50s. He looks old. Everything. His face looks old. His body looks... It just looks old. It doesn't look like the body of anyone in their 30s. Right? Even though he's out of shape, it just looks old. You can see it in his skin. So, for me, it's like, okay, you fought a guy who's probably pushing 50 if he's not already there. You look terrible against him. Absolutely awful. You could barely hurt him. He looks slower than usual, and Dillian Whyte's never been the fastest heavyweight in the world, ever, even in his prime. Never been the hardest to find either. And you're trying to fight, the likes of whoever, a Cody, whoever, Anthony Joshua, etc., etc., etc. And you fought this guy and you did that. And some people are saying, maybe Ebenezer Tete is better than we think. He goes in there against Fraser Clark, who literally had a dint put in his head by Fabio Wardley 6 months earlier. And Fraser Clark, who's not a big puncher, even by heavyweight standards, goes in there, no bother, and throws and gets rid of him in a round. Looked like a prime George Foreman in there. So, that puts it all into context. And Fraser Clark is not highly thought of, no offence. So, it puts into context where Dillian Whyte is at. So him going in there against Itauma, a young, aggressive, a hard punching heavyweight, a fast heavyweight. This is going to be over like that. I'm telling you now, it's going to be over like that, because Dillian Whyte will probably have never fought... I'm trying to think, would he have? Probably not ever. Maybe Joe Parker. No. Because Joe Parker does have fast hands, but not as fast a feet. Dillian Whyte would probably have never fought anyone with as quick a feet as Moses Itauma, as quick a hands, the whole package, who's able to move like Itauma, southpaw, can hit like Itauma. He's probably faced plenty of guys like that. But all that combined into one, man, he is going to get lit up in there. Like this seriously, this might not last a round or two. Dillian Whyte, because again, Dillian Whyte is a vet. He's wily, but he's never been the hardest to find. He's not known for, his stunning defense, to say the least. Itauma will absolutely light Dillian Whyte up like a Christmas tree in there and probably stop him in a couple of rounds, maybe between 1 to 3. Seriously, it's going to be that early. And I get why they're doing it. Because they're wanting to step Moses Itauma up. And for me, as I said, this doesn't... On the surface, yes, it would appear a step up. Oh, he's fighting Dillian Whyte. Dillian Whyte's only ever lost to world champions like Tyson Fury, Joshua Povetkin. Well, yeah, that's true. And that was a prime Dillian Whyte. But Dillian Whyte now is not at his prime. He's looked absolutely awful. You probably got an English level fighter in front of you now, really, with Dillian Whyte. And what it'll do is it won't bring Moses Itauma along in any way in his career. It's not going to do him diddly squat in terms of career progression. But what it will do is it will move him along in terms of PR and marketing. Because Dillian Whyte still has name value. I'm sure he's not got quite the sway. He certainly doesn't, not now anyway, with the casual audience. But people still know who he is. You mentioned Dillian and you're like, oh, Dillian Whyte. Yeah, Dillian Whyte and this, that and the other. People still know who he is, even the casuals. So be like, oh, this Itauma kid who's 20 years old, he's fighting Dillian Whyte, and he goes in there and does a demolition job, which I expect him to do. Then Itauma's stock will rise. He's not fought anyone in terms of Dillian. Like, he's fought Dillian Whyte, who's completely washed to bits. But the casual audience don't know that. The casual audience won't care. They'll be thinking, oh yeah, Dillian Whyte, the guy who fought Joshua, the guy who fought Fury in Wembley. Look what this kid just did. And that's how it's going to be. And it's clever, matchmaking, very clever. And for Dillian Whyte, at the end of the day, he's not going to fight for a world title. I mean, you could have put him on this undercard. And you could have put him in there against John Doe, whose record was 7-20. Alright? And in an 8-rounder. And Dillian Whyte still could have looked bad. And you just don't want to be taking risks like that. And that's why I can see why they didn't go ahead with this fight, or whoever he's going to be fighting, whatever, on the undercard of Wardley versus Uni, because you just can't take risks with him at this stage. He's completely shot to bits. So best just cash out on a Moses Itauma fight. It'll be completely one-sided, and Itauma's name will just go even. It's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. It's going to get even bigger when he fights Dillian Whyte, if in fact this is true, and he does end up going ahead with the Dillian Whyte fight, because it does kind of, I guess it does kind of make sense for both guys. Whyte wants a big payday. He's going to get a big payday against Itauma because he's Frank's golden boy, and I think the Saudis love him as well. And for Itauma, it's not going to help you progress in your career in terms of development, but, well, you could try new things on someone like a Dillian Whyte, I guess, but you're just going to become a bigger name than you already are. So it's a win-win for both guys, and just literally hardly any risk for Itauma, because people say, well, maybe Itauma is a bit chinny and this, that and the other. Well, maybe, I don't know. I haven't seen any chinks in his chin yet, but saying that he's not been tested with it. Dillian Whyte couldn't put a dent in Ebenezer Tete, and he hit him plenty. So that tells me the power is even going. So I wouldn't even be worried. I wouldn't even be thinking about Dillian Whyte chinning Moses Itauma, because you couldn't chin Ebenezer Tete. You're not going to chin Itauma unless Itauma is literally, Amir Khan, David Price all rolled into one, in terms of chin, and I don't think he is. So that's my thoughts on this. Let me know. August 16th, Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. We'll also talk of Ray Ford versus Anthony Kakache. Bit of a random one, but I like it. It's a decent fight. Then Nick Ball is also going to face, is it Sam Goodman? Now, he was meant to fight Inoue back on Boxing Day, and he got a cut. They rescheduled it to the end of January, and the cut obviously still hadn't healed, so he never got that fight. So he's moved up in weight to 126, going to challenge Nick Ball. All right. I love watching Nick Ball. I'll happily watch Nick Ball any day of the week, so I'm good with that. So yeah, card shaping up nicely. Let's see what's going to happen. The strange thing is, though, right? No, I was thinking that they're not going to do that. I'm not even going to say what I was thinking of doing, but you'll probably understand when I say it what I was thinking. These are fights. Actually all of them, the three of them, they're fights you would expect on the Usyk Dubois undercard in Wembley Stadium, and they're not happening in Wembley Stadium. They're happening on the next card in August. So, you can see where my thinking was going, but they're never going to do that. They've already sold the ticket. They're never going to do that. They're never going to move it. But it is strange. Like, where's the undercard for Usyk Dubois? I want to know. We're hearing about shows in August. We're not hearing about a show in July. It's only a month. Well, it's more than a month away. But you know what I mean? It's not far off a month away. So yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed the video. People, smash the like button if you could. Hit subscribe as always if you haven't already. And until next time, peace.